It used to be hard to find the exact auto parts you needed, and that meant spending a lot of time at swap meets. It's a different game now when you can order exactly what you need from eBay Motors. They have 122 million parts, so you can always find the right fitment. Spend less time searching and more time building with the eBay Motors app or visit ebaymotors.com. Let's ride.
Holidays are here, and so is fashionable fitness. Gift yourself a Samsung Galaxy Z Flip 3 5G, a phone that folds in half to literally stand on its own. Pair it with the Galaxy Watch 4 for ultimate wellness and wow factor. Check health stats, flex personal records. Over 90 activities can be tracked, like biking, swimming, golfing, and more. Invest in yourself with tech made to crush goals. Holidays open up with Galaxy. Shop it all at Samsung.com. 5G connection and availability may vary. Check with carrier. Products sold separately.
Hey everyone, this is the Almost World Podcast. Bringing to you mind-blowing interviews with guests from all over the world. So settle down, relax, and enjoy the show. Oh yeah, by the way, if you like the podcast, please support Elmo's World Podcast on Patreon. Your support is what helps the podcast improve more and more. 1, 2, and 3. Welcome to Elmo's World Podcast. I have my friend Andrew Hall here. Hey man, can you introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Andrew Hall. I want to say thank you for having me on the show. I'm excited to be here. Psyched. So my name is Andrew Hall. I run a blog on a faith-based site called Patheos. I'm actually on the Atheist channel, on the non-religious channel. My blog is called Laughing in Disbelief. I also have a YouTube page called Laughing in Disbelief 2, awesome, where I talk about atheism, politics, and also comedy. I want to say that my meat and potatoes is basically comedy, but I'm also a liberal and an atheist. I live here in the States, in the United States of America. So it's been nothing but fun and excitement here over the last couple of weeks with the election and all. So I focus a lot about satirizing the religious right here in this country.
Awesome.
And exploring different issues that a lot of people would find funny and informative.
Okay. Well, let's get down to business, because I think that in terms of your political views, you're more on I guess you voted for Biden and stuff, and so I want to talk about that. Like, why did you vote for Biden?
Well, what I did is actually I voted for the Green Party candidate, Howie Hawkins.
Oh, okay. Sorry for Mr.
Oh, no. It's very natural to just assume that if you didn't vote for Trump, then you voted for Biden. Because, you only hear about the Democrats and Republicans. Mm-hmm. But there are third-party candidates. And here in the United States of America, we have such an idiosyncratic system that it actually makes sense for me to have voted for a Green Party candidate as against for Joe Biden.
Let me stop you there first. So the question is, do you think that your vote counted because you voted for a candidate that probably wouldn't win anyways?
Yes.
Okay.
Because I live in the state of Massachusetts, and here in the state of Massachusetts, we are a very blue state. We're very heavy tilted towards Democrats in this state. So what happens is that all of our electoral votes go towards the Democratic candidate. And so what I thought was the most strategic way of voting was that if I wanted to shift the conversation towards the left, towards more progressive values, because I live in a safe blue state, me voting for the Green Party candidate helps shift the conversation more to the left politically.
True. Okay, cool. Because it's not just that you voted, but you're also talking about why you voted the Green Party at the same time. So in a way, you sharing that narrative means that people in the USA would explore outside of the dichotomy of the blue and the red, and actually talk about why they should vote for the other party as well. The third one, the ignored one.
Right, right. It helps shift the conversation. That's what it does. And if I was living in a state that was up for grabs, like if I was living in Ohio or Pennsylvania, I would have voted blue. I would have voted for Biden. But because I live in a safe blue state, I decided to go for Green Party.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay. So in terms of that, why do you hold these values? Like, why are you in a way why do you have liberal values compare or in contrast to religious people? Is it maybe because you
Sure.
don't have that any religion, or you're an atheist? Is that why?
I am an atheist, and I am a person who supports secular Enlightenment era kind
Mm-hmm.
of values,
Okay.
where we try to read, where rationality is
Mm-hmm.
something to aspire to,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, it is something to say that I want to live my life in a logically coherent way as much as humanly possible. I don't expect to be perfect, but it's a goal worth striving for.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, I would love to challenge that rationality part, because would you say that your worldview is a rational one? That's the question.
I would say that our species, human beings, we are capable of reason, but that does not make us reasonable creatures. So we can work to be more rational, but at our core, we have a lot of wired in cognitive fallacies. Our brains like to run in circles a lot of the time. And we like to think common sense things are true, but science teaches us that our basic intuitions about the world are oftentimes wrong. For an example, many of us thought the world was flat for centuries and centuries, up until the time that science came along, basic reasoning came along, and made us realize that, hey, the earth is spherical.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, well, you Andrew, I assume that you would say that you also have these wired in illogical parts, or are you already in a way have less of these compared to the religious people? What would you say?
Well, it's a funny thing that you should ask that, because I think the only thing that atheism protects you or gives you insurance against is the specific cognitive fallacies that are inbred in religion. However, that doesn't mean that the everyday atheist is some kind of super person, that we don't fall for other kinds of cognitive fallacies, like, for an example, I don't know, any garden variety kind of fallacy whatsoever. So
Okay.
so it's important to have a discipline and try to work towards that. Yeah. I hope that makes sense.
Okay, so you're saying that both sides, religious, non-religious, atheist, non-atheist, both sides have logical problems innate in themselves. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, because we're people. Yeah,
Okay.
because we're people.
Okay, so in a way, you're someone who isn't a theist, or doesn't believe in religion because of probably rational reasons, right?
I would like to think so. Yes.
Okay, but can I ask you this, right? Like, the USA is mostly majority Christian, I mean, and a lot of also other religions as well, but mostly Christian. And the atheism community mostly is on the offense against Christianity. So, being an atheist who goes on these shows and who actually hosts YouTube shows about this, what would be your main arguments against Christianity and why you're not a Christian?
Well, a lot of what I do personally is playing defense because, as you're probably well aware of, the United States of America is the most religious country in terms of what many would consider to be developed nations. So here, so we have a more religious culture than you might find in, let's say, England or Germany or Japan or Australia. And the nature of our politics is very religious. The Republican Party has been basically co-opted by the religious right here, by the evangelicals in this country. And while the evangelicals have a small minority, a minority in this country in terms of their sect of Christianity, they exert a very strong influence on the Republican Party because they are very motivated and they are very energetic and they are very aggressive. So a lot of what I do is poking fun at them. And when they try to blur into and bleed into politics and attack the rights of, let's say, people who are gay or people who think differently than they do, it's natural for me to act on defense. That's how I see myself.
Okay. So you're not like someone who go heads on for the. I don't play it. But I would say that you're someone who just defends what you think is right. You don't care about what they believe. They might believe something wrong, but that's up to them. But when it comes to them overstepping on other people's rights, both politically and maybe on a personal level too, that's where you draw the line, right? And that's why you're on defense.
I would say so. I think that's I think that's a fair way of stating my position. Yeah.
Okay, so I guess that stand is based on like American values of freedom, individuality, stuff like that, human rights, that every individual is free to be himself, herself, other pronouns. Would you agree with that, or is it something?
Sure.
Why would you? Okay, yeah. But why do you hold these values, though? Can I ask you this question? Because in this podcast, I get very, very philosophical, and I hope that you would entertain me.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Oh yeah. I like talking with people. I have to. I like talking with people. I like playing around with ideas.
Awesome.
And I like joking around too.
Awesome.
So it makes me think of Winston Churchill, and he said one time, and I'm going to paraphrase him because I don't have his gift of language, but he said that democracy is a horrible form of government until you compare it with everything else.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
And in that way, so what does that mean? So democracy, you need to have, this kind of emphasis on individual rights, on an educated populace, on those kind of elements. And so I would agree with Winston Churchill on this matter that democracy is the best in a bad pick, in a bad set of options. And so it just makes sense that the rights of minorities would be protected against mob rule, and that people want to be left alone in a lot of ways to live their lives and to be more productive. I think there's a case to be made also that when people have enjoyed personal freedoms, they are happier and they are more productive overall, generally speaking.
Okay, and well, while we're talking about politics, I would say this, right? Like, so there are individual belief systems that people hold, like they have their own values and core beliefs that I guess where they draw from, and like for example, Christianity, right? Christianity is mainly the thing that the right or the political right derive their values from, like their pro-life beliefs, their marriage, and when it comes to that, like and when you look at politics, right, and you look at it from the outside, like from outside all belief systems, outside all political systems, it's all just simply a power struggle. That's what postmodernists would say, right? Whoever wins the power struggle, it gets to be on top and gets to control whatever happens. It gets to control policies, and that's what we see happening with democracy in a way, right? Like, you can vote however you want, but ultimately the majority wins. And majority wins isn't really fair in a way, to be honest, right? It's not something you would. So, can I ask you, why do you hold your own values? Like, where do you derive your ethics, your meaning?
Well, I think it's a good, now meaning. I love talking about meaning, and I like talking about where we all get our ethics. I've had people on my channel on YouTube, scientists come on, evolutionary psychologists, biologists come on and talk about where we all get our ethics from. And it seems to be clear that, human beings, we are a particular type of animal. And just as we have inherited many of our physical traits from, our animal cousins, from our animal relatives, we have also inherited our predispositions towards ethics and morality, especially from our other apes. For an example, chimpanzees will show each other compassion and mercy under certain circumstances. There was a famous chimpanzee called Knuckles who had a disability, and you can see this on YouTube. And the tribe that he was in, the chimpanzee tribe that he was in, showed him passion and mercy because Chuckles could not obey the typical code of chimpanzee behavior, but the other chimps realized that and gave him a free pass. That's a certain amount of compassion right there. There's also many instances of apes and chimps showing other ethical kind of viewpoints, like being fair. There's a classic study that, once again, you can just YouTube this, about monkeys being given treats. So there are two monkeys in cages. They were both given cucumbers at first. And cucumbers, I guess, are very tasty treats for these type of monkeys. And then one of the monkeys started being given a carrot. And carrots aren't considered to be a very nice treat for monkeys. And not only did the monkey getting the carrot didn't like it, but the other monkey, who was still getting cucumbers, was somewhat irritated and agitated because his friend wasn't being treated well. So I would say ultimately that we're all apes, basically, that we get a lot, whether we're religious or not, we get our sense of morality and compassion from our evolutionary past.
Okay. Well, in terms of that, then, right? You're someone who we are someone who evolved to be empathetic. So what would be the reason, my rational reason why I should be empathetic, right? Like, in a way, it's sort of like, okay, you're on this path, I put you in this path now, or we slipped actually accidentally on this path, and so why should I continue on this path? There's no actual reason why I should be empathetic in any way. What would be your yeah?
A lot of people confuse the idea about survival of the fittest to meaning some kind of rabid, individualistic kind of maxim. But it's really about survivability, being able to work with each other. We are social creatures. We're not solitary animals. And so baked into us is this drive to act together. And when you think about what's the cement about holding human relationships together, that is empathy and compassion.
Yeah,
it is the cement that holds us all together.
well, I agree. I agree in a way that but the question is, right? Like, so if I evolved, if I accidentally went into the direction of empathy and love, why should I continue it? What's the reason? Because ultimately there was no reason at the first as to why I should be empathetic. So why should I be empathetic now?
Well, the thing, so it's an interesting question. So let's say we have a predisposition towards being empathetic and compassion. And you can ask yourself, so why do I choose to be empathetic and compassion right now? And that's a good question, because there are some circumstances where you have to temper those traits, don't you? Right? So you have to be able to logically think and weigh out circumstances and say, what are other variables in this particular situation that I'm in, and how do I temper that compassion and mercy? What's the best way to execute those principles? And sometimes you have to be hard. Sometimes you have to say no to people, of course, because we're adults, we're intelligent people, and we know you can't say yes all the time to other people's needs. And that can be counterproductive. But once again, when you do that, that's for a higher level of love and compassion too, that this is the best choice for me to make for my long-term goals. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. So when you talk about empathy though, right? You say that there's an innate disposition there. I would agree. We are innately predisposed to be empathetic and loving. But the question is, why should I be empathetic? Why should I be loving? Now I know that there was actually no reason as to why I should be. Is there, so in a way, is it just that it appears to me that I should love, so I'm going to love, but in if you put it in a rational way, like, so it doesn't really follow. Do you see what I mean?
Well, what it does is that it makes life easier overall most of the time to be able, because when you talk about empathy and compassion, it covers a whole sense of traits and abilities. It's about being able to understand what other people are thinking. It's the ability to read faces and to know what how the other person is responding to what you're saying. So empathy and compassion, they are actually, in a strange way, they help you in a very selfish way
survive. Yeah, they help me survive
and thrive, and to thrive.
Okay.
You see, you see that these social skills that people get from these, from being for our tendency to be empathic and compassionate, they are very useful traits to have.
Okay. So in a way, your answer is, let me not strawman you. I'm just trying to draw implications from what you say, when you say that I want to be loving and empathetic because it helps me survive as an individual. So in that case, is there actually any non-selfish love? Is there actually anything like that?
It's fascinating, because you can divide. Now we start talking about semantics and about definitions of words.
Okay.
I think about Richard Dawkins, and he wrote in The Selfish Gene, which, if you haven't read, I suggest, and if your audience hasn't read it,
yes,
it's his seminal. It's a seminal work. So he defined altruism as an act which limits the lifespan, or I believe the reproductive potential of an organism. So if I do something that affects me in a very base kind of negative way, like say that I give $5 to someone on the street, I give $5 to a homeless person on the street, that's $5 out of my pocket. And even though it only slightly affects me negatively, it does affect me personally negatively. And so he would define that as an altruistic act.
So But the question is, do you act in that way? And in your thought processes, when you love someone, when you take care of someone, do you have in the back of your mind, ultimately, this is just to benefit me? Is that the case?
Absolutely not, because absolutely not, because that's the nature of instinct, right? I mean, instinct and meaning, because meaning just isn't something written down. It is a lived experience. So when I am doing the good, at no point do I think, or not oftentimes do I think I'm doing this for X, Y, and Z reasons. When I'm in the middle of the act, it is the experience of the enjoy. Yeah, it is the unfolding maybe of the instinct. Yeah, the unfolding like a flower. It is something that I am experiencing in real time. And though I can say this is A, B, and C, why I'm doing it, in the moment because I help people. I work with people. I have worked with people with disabilities for the last 25 years. And even though I can say that, yes, I have, it's a job, I'm making money off of it. When I was actually helping people in that moment, my only concern, my focus was helping that person.
Okay. Well, I seem to have heard two things from you, right? Yeah. One is that the first one, you said that we as humans, we empathize instinctively because we are innately predisposed to be selfish, and that selfish act manifests itself through our caring for one another, for a collective. And the second one you say is that you are someone who thinks not selfishly, but every act you make is something that is genuinely for others and never for yourself. These are truly. So when when you think about it, the two things that you said before actually don't make sense together. That to be instinctively selfish doesn't coincide with how your thought process actually goes about in your daily life, where you genuinely act for others and nothing actually comes from selfish desire.
Right. I want to talk about this and this is a good point, is that I do not start out thinking, oh, I'm doing this good act because of selfish motives. I do the good act because it's the good act. We're all scientists in a way, trying to figure out why we feel the way that we feel, trying to think about or figure out why we do the things that we do. So originally, I do the good act just because I feel like it's the good act. And then upon analysis and reflection, I can definitely say, oh, well, the reason why I like doing this, or probably the reason why I'm doing this, is because I'm predisposed to act in a certain way. And that's been molded by evolution.
Okay, so now that you realize that the way you act is because if it was molded by evolution, is that now part or integrated into your thought process? Your actions every day. Oh, I'm being loving to my wife. Oh, it's probably because I was evolved to be this way. So I'm going to do this because I was evolved to be this way. Is that your thought process?
Yeah, absolutely not. I think that it is most of us are living in. No, absolutely not. I am in the emotion. I am living in a phenomenological way.
Awesome.
I am here and now. And then, like I said, much like a scientist, you observe your own behavior, and then you say afterwards, wow, this is probably why I feel X, Y, and Z. But that doesn't lessen the experience. And this is what a lot of theists have. They have a difficult...
What do you mean by it lessens? It doesn't lessen the experience. Like, I don't think it does.
And allow me to pontificate upon this.
Awesome.
Is that a lot of theists have difficulty imagining how can you enjoy love, how can you enjoy that emotion when you know that you're predisposed to it over millions and millions of years of evolution. And the only thing that I could say is that two things. One, I can just tell you, as reporting from my own person, from my own lived experiences, that it does not lessen it whatsoever. The way how I love now is just as strong as
actually,
how I loved when. Oh no, let me continue. Let me continue, please. My feeling, my experience of love is the same now as it was when I was a believer. So I don't feel any qualitatively different from. In other words, it wasn't as if I loved in a certain way or I experienced the emotion when I believed in Christianity as to how I experience it now. I mean, love is still love.
Okay, but I think that, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that you misunderstood what theists are saying, in that it doesn't lessen the experience itself, but simply that your explanation that it came from evolution and the selfish desires, and altruism, lessens the understanding of the experience, because you were right. Phenomenologically, the quality of your love for your family, for friends, it's real. It's something that is there, and that's what theists are talking about. There's something deeper going on there, rather other than just evolution in the works, but I would say that you have some sort of disagreement with that, or not.
Okay, so say that again, and maybe succinctly,
Okay.
because I didn't hear all of it. I didn't hear all of it. I'll admit.
Okay, so
No,
what these are saying is that your experience is not lessened in the quality itself, but only on how it is explained or understood, right? For example, I would say as a theist that truly of any father's love, atheist or not, or theist, would be true for his children or his wife. But the thing is that the way you explain it, right? Like, so how it comes about, that's what lessens it, right? That's what lessens the meaning of it, right? That I love you because I evolved to love you. That sounds like, what a robot would say.
It may not. It may not sound nice
because
it may not sound pretty, but I will say this: if it is true, if it is something that is true, then there is wonderment in knowing what is real.
Awesome.
There is, and it's just like a monkey, right? When a monkey figures out how to wash a potato and free it of sand in the ocean, there's this little light that lightens up in a monkey's brain going, wow, this is fantastic. I understand things. And, me understanding why I do the things that I do, I really like it. I enjoy it. And I don't think atheists talk enough about the wonderment that they experience. This kind of and Sam Harris does a bit about this kind of mystical aspect of knowing things and not knowing things. There is this sense of awe, and when I figure out something new, even just on my stupid computer, Elmo, I'm like, wow, this is pretty awesome. And a little light shines on in my brain.
Okay.
So it's like that too. When I figure out why I do the things I do, it's like, wow, I never thought of myself like that. Okay. And then there is this deeper appreciation, I think.
Okay, but
at least this is for me. This is my experience.
Okay, let me clarify a little more, as you say about knowing, right? Because, for example, when you talk about magic, like when you say that, oh, this ball in my hand is gonna disappear, and then you say you have that awe, right? Like that, oh, that's awesome, that's interesting. But then when you explain how it happened, there is also that, oh, that was neat, right? Oh, that. But then after that, when you see the trick again, well, it loses its magic. It loses its essence. And I would say that if that is the case with love, with being a good person, with following justice, and now that you have this sort of robotic or automatic or naturalistic understanding of the experience, That's what I mean by it loses its quality, right? Because formerly,
Well,
you have this understanding that of humanly, that because you didn't know before why you love someone, you have this much deep feeling about it. But then, oh, because I love you because I evolved to be so, and then okay, I'm just gonna love you. That's it. It's
so I'll try to explain it another way. So Elmo, do you like movies?
yeah, I do.
Okay, I love movies. I've written a variety of different scripts. And there's a structure to most movies, or to most stories. There's the first act, the second act, the third act. And I have irritated many girlfriends with being in the movie theater and looking at my watch or my cell phone to see what time it is, to see if whatever's going on in the movie syncs up with where the story plot line should be, right? So there is the end of the first act, certain things happen. There's a midpoint, certain things happen. There's the apparent defeat of the hero in the third act. And, I will look at my, check the time every once in a while to see if it basically lines up with what's going on in the movie to where the story is in my mind. Mm-hmm. Now, that annoys people around me. But for me, I have a deeper appreciation for the art. Mm-hmm. That way, I would say I have a deeper appreciation knowing how the movie got made, how the movie got written, mm-hmm. and so mm-hmm. understanding brings about a deeper sense mm-hmm. of of appreciation. Yeah, I don't want to keep saying that over and over again, but emotionally, it's like, oh.
Mm-hmm. I think though that the deeper sense comes from because you're the one creating it. There are persons, there are people actually appreciating the movie because of your art. But the thing is, when you talk about evolution, there's nothing special going on there. It's just death and death and death and mutations and mutations, and that's what that eventually.
Well, there is that is like saying there's nothing really exciting about a movie because there's a guy and a girl and they're going to get hooked up at the end, but. But, why am I watching this movie? You watch it because it's fascinating. That's why. Evolution is fascinating.
You're saying that life is like a movie, right? Like life is it's an interesting movie that it's, even if there's it's just fake and all that, it's still awesome to watch. That's what you're saying.
Yeah. Yeah, I know I'm going to be, I'm 52 years old. I know I'm going to be dead in like 30, 40, 50 years, but I'm still enjoying the ride.
Awesome
I know how it ends.
Man. Yeah.
And the thing is, evolution, it's so weird. It's so weird and fascinating. People have tailbones. 1 in 10,000 babies are born with a tail that has to be taken off. How weird is that? How weird is that? That's fascinating. I find that interesting. And there's a whole bunch of these weird idiosyncrasies that we have from our primitive ancestors, which I just find fascinating to think about. And
yeah. I also believe in evolution too. But the thing about what you said, right? Like life is a movie, and that it's just happening no matter how. And even if we all evolved to be this way accidentally and all that, death and mutations, it's still a fun thing, a fun ride to be in. That's a cool philosophy, man. And do you really believe that though? That is that how you look at life? That it's a ride, that a short one, but I'm gonna enjoy this one anyway.
Well, I think that I think that let me try to phrase this properly. Finding meaning and experience meaning is probably one of the most important things a person can do in their life after they've figured out how to resolve problems like how do I feed myself, how do I give myself shelter, in Maslow's hierarchy of needs kind of way, that once you have those other physical problems taken care of, finding meaning is really important. I think there have been many studies that show, and other people much smarter than me have said that if you find meaning and experience meaning in your life, you're far less likely to be anxious or depressed or to be physically sick even. And so finding your own meaning and creating meaning in your own life, that is something important to engage in. And once again, we have these, we are predisposed to find meaning at a certain point, I think.
Okay. So it's interesting how you say that, right? Like you being accidentally predisposed to find something more from what you're predisposed to be, right?
Well, it isn't accidental, because let me tell you something.
It is accidental.
Natural selection. It is a random process, but it also, if it was completely random, then there'd be people walking around with 8 arms, and that doesn't happen.
So are you saying that we're designed or something?
No, what I'm not saying that. What I'm not saying is that there are definitely, evolution basically deals with what is there already.
Yeah, okay.
Very few. If evolution can take care of the job using what it has.
What do you mean by what is there already, though?
So let's talk about the evolution of the eye, right? So the eye, which people understand. Scientists understand the evolution of the eye. So it basically starts off with a random mutation about having some cells being more photosensitive than others. And over millions and millions of years, these random changes, these random mutations so there are random mutations, but the thing is, it's the random mutations that increase the likelihood of survival are the ones that get chosen, or the ones that get selected. That's the natural selection process. So even though there are random mutations, the ones that stay in the species, the ones that stay with us, are the ones that help survivability in the long run, and in the short run too. So to say it's completely random, yes and no. There are completely random mutations,
I didn't
but
say
the
it's
ones,
completely
but the
random.
ones that
I said it's accidental.
Right. Well, I'm just saying that. Yeah, of course, it's accidental. So I just want to clarify that, for people who might be listening too, of course.
Okay, but I guess that someone who's not familiar with evolution, they would be confused with what I mean by accidental. But okay, you're right. We need to be precise here. Okay, so let's go back to your existential reasons, right? Like, so you're someone like living life as if it's just a movie you want to watch. Okay, so but where do you draw the line in saying in the foundations of what you believe? Like, for example, let's say first one, human rights. I think you believe that we all have human rights, but why?
Well, I think human rights, it is a tool. It is a cognitive tool that helps us to make societies work well. In other words, it is a tool to help societies progress in a way that makes them more adaptive in the long term. So you'll have some societies that haven't had a solid basis in human rights, for an example, and so it's easier for oligarchs, for those in power, to dominate the society and to kill off progress, because what powerful groups want to do is to keep power, and that oftentimes means squashing ideas. That means keeping scientific progress to a minimum. And there's been many examples, historically speaking, of this happening, where groups, where nations have decided that, or the powerful in certain nations have decided, well, we don't want progress to happen because we want to stay in power. What human rights does, it gives us a framework to fight against that basic tendency towards autocracy, which is deadly. Autocracy in the long run is deadly to our species, because that keeps us from growing intellectually and from making the world a better place for us and our children.
Okay. So why?
There's a lot there, dude. I'm sorry. I just threw down a whole bunch of
that's
stuff.
awesome. That's awesome. But why do we have human rights, and where does it come from?
Well, I mean, why do we have the wheel? We have the wheel because it works. We have found that, hey, we tried putting wagons with squares. And, it kind of sucks.
The thing is that what you're saying is that there might be actually no human rights at all, but we're just going to put a label there that might not be actually there because it's useful. It's pragmatic.
Well,
it works.
If it works.
So no one actually has human rights, but for the sake of society, we should have human rights.
Yeah, I think it makes sense.
Okay.
I think the idea that we all have these certain rights that should be protected, though they're not carved in a physical stone or in the foundations of the universe.
There is no actual human rights, but because we want a better society, we should adopt this concept of human rights. That's basically it.
Yeah, I think that's probably the most honest way to say it, yes.
Okay.
But I would say that, so yes, it is definitely the most useful tool that humans have devised on how to get along and how to make ourselves less dumb.
Okay, so in a way, so for example, when you talk to someone, for example, let's say a liberal, right? And you're a liberal, and you say that it's my right to be a free person, to express myself. But you tell her that, but you only have the rights because it's useful, but you don't really have any rights because society.
Well, I have to tell you, we always talk. We talk in shorthand, don't we? When we talk to each other. So I'll be, dude. I mean, I'll be talking with people. And if I say I'm an atheist, I'll just say, I'm an atheist. And then they go, well, what do you mean by that? And then there are deeper levels of what these words mean.
Okay, we can talk about the deeper levels here, bro.
But in basic everyday conversations, like I believe in human rights, I will sign the petition to support human rights. And then when we have a deeper conversation like we are now, then we can start exploring what that means. Mm-hmm. But in everyday conversation, I'm like, yes, I'm pro human rights.
But why?
And usually most people and then when we get into why, then I'll start talking about, well, it's the most useful tool for us to get along with each other. And a lot of people don't find that very satisfying. It's a nuanced argument.
Okay, so it's
it's
like some sort of postmodernism, right? What I was talking about, that it's all just a power struggle, and in this power struggle, I want human rights to be something that our society adopts because it benefits me. It's useful to me because the little guys.
And it actually.
Yeah.
And it advances the group too. It isn't just me. It advances the group too.
Okay, so question.
And you can look at it.
One question, right? Before you say because it advances the group, but why do you care if it advances the group? Right? You're an individual.
Because it happens.
You're someone who's living.
Well, I have children. Okay. I have children, and so I don't want to leave the world a dumpster fire for my kids.
Okay.
And because I'm a compassionate. Because I'm a compassionate person, or I try to be a compassionate person, I don't want to have I don't want the rest of my, fellow citizens to be living in a dumpster fire either.
Okay, so here is what you just told me in a gist, right? So you're someone who's living life as if it's a movie, right? And you're enjoying it, and even if you just evolved to be this way accidentally, but you're just enjoying the beauty of life. And then you want society to progress because you would want your family, your future descendants, to have a better condition in their living as well, right? Is that the case?
Yeah, I'm cool with that.
Okay, cool. So would you say that when you want for your family and your descendants to have better living conditions, what principle are you following here? Are you saying that something like against the anti-principle, anti-harm, or against the harm principle? Are you following the utilitarianism?
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah. So
I would say that I want my children to live in a less miserable way than I am. I would want, and yes,
and that's
I guess
something
I made this
evolutionarily
joke.
attained too, right? That you would want.
Yeah, I would say so. Sure.
Okay.
And so it's a very scientific thing in a way to say too, because science, it's about being less wrong in some ways, right? So I want to be less wrong. I want to be less miserable, and I want my children to be less wrong than I was, and to be less miserable than I have been, if that makes sense.
Well, what's interesting with us humans is we have the question of why. And even a science doesn't answer the question of why, right? It just answers what, where, when, how. But the question of why, well, it doesn't answer that, And for example, like,
what
I exist right now.
one of the
why should I exist right now? Doesn't answer that.
Well, that's a question of meaning, and that is something that you have to figure out. I mean, you're given all this other stuff, but you got to figure out why you're here, and that onus is on you, brother.
So meaning
that is something that you have to figure.
Meaning is subjective.
You have to. Well, once again, it is interesting because I like to tell. There's a story that Richard Dawkins talks about in one of his books. It's about these songbirds, and these songbirds, they all sing the same song basically when they're out in the wild. But if you take an egg and hatch it and keep it away from other songbirds of its species, it will eventually start singing the same song. It will have to experiment with what song. It will start, playing around with the music, but eventually it will sing the same song. So we are predisposed for meaning. We don't sing the same songs, right, that everybody else sings, but we do have a song to uncover, to discover, and to create. And that's what makes us feel good in the long term. Once we've taken care of all these other physical issues like shelter and food.
Okay, but when you said, right, like, when you follow the utilitarian principle, and that what is useful to have, like, and you want, because of the harm, you would want less harm, for better well-being.
Yeah.
But that, in that sense, right? When you put yourself in a world of that, everything is just power. And that's what's That's what I think dominates that world you're living in. Like, for example, if I were to defeat you, like, for example, if someone were to overpower you, they would be right to do so, because that's what they would. That's obeying their own usefulness, their own harm principle. And it becomes like a world of everything is permissible.
There are certain social economics systems that obviously don't work in the long term. They are, for whatever reasons. You can talk about Stalinism in Russia, for an example, in the USSR. It was a system that could not compete against other systems, and they did horrible things to each other. There were no human rights. And basically it collapsed in upon itself. And one of the reasons why it did is because we are predisposed towards being compassionate people. And the thing is that human rights make sense. It is the tool that is the most useful way to work together in the long run. And those principles just weren't in the USSR. They weren't, especially under Stalinism. So I would say that there are, if we were another species, Albo, if we were like bees, right? If we were bees, then maybe it would be, and I'm sorry for the pun, maybe it would be a good idea for us just to dominate each other in some hive. But we're not. We're not. And so it isn't just the idea that might makes right, because there's a lot of stupid strong out there, right? There's a lot of stupid strong, and typically stupid strong only works in the short term.
Yeah. Well, China is working really, really well. But anyways, you're right.
So I have to ask you, Elmo, where are you located? I'm just curious.
I'm from the Philippines. I'm 20 years old.
Oh, from the Philippines.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. anyways, we're really close by China, and I hope that they don't colonize us. But anyways,
Right. Well, yes.
but
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
anyways,
You all have.
yeah. Yeah, but anyway, I'm not allowed to say that. But anyways, when you say that, you're living your life as a movie, it's really a interesting philosophy there. That's similar to what Camus would say, like Albert Camus, and then and Sartre
Sure, sure.
maybe. Okay, but it's really rooted in existentialism of the French. We all draw
Sure.
back to them. So let me ask you this, to end our interview, because it's been an awesome conversation, man. I wish I could get another
Thanks.
hour with you, but
Right.
one last question is, being someone who has YouTube channels and stuff, what advice would you give to someone exploring science and evolution and just arriving at these conclusions that it's that of nihilism, but you're someone he's more of existentialism, and that there is
Yeah.
meaning to life and there's beauty, and what would you say to someone with those doubts?
Well, I mean, if you're working on if you're going on YouTube, or if you're going on any other kind of media, then just as it doesn't matter what you're doing, you have to understand the media platform itself, and understand the rules that govern the platform and about the algorithm, because there are some tricks that you can do to make what your message is in front of more people, basically. And so you'll see I'm not telling you anything you don't already know. There is some really good content and popular content on YouTube, and there's a lot of crap too that's really popular on YouTube. So the
Yeah.
trick is not only being or stating what you want to say, it is getting it in front of as many eyeballs as possible.
True.
And so those are two different goals, two different things you have to think about.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. And one other thing, man, why vote for the Green Party next time?
Well, I don't know what the situation is going to be like in 2 years or 4 years. I take it as a case-by-case situation.
Okay.
I want the country to be. I want the United States of America to be a little bit more like Sweden and Norway, and I think that there are different ways that I can go about doing that. In this past election, I voted green in that goal.
Okay. Well, Andrew, thank you so much for being on my show. I hope that you could accept another invite sometime. Thank you for your time, man.
Thanks. I had a lot of fun, Elmo. This has been a great conversation, man.
So that's the end of it. Thanks for tuning in, guys. This is your host, Elmo Ador Jr. And thank you for listening in. And please subscribe. Please follow us on Facebook. Please follow this. Please. Thanks.
Gearheads know that some projects need so many parts, it feels like you need a whole storage unit just to store them. That's what eBay Motors' 122 million parts are for. Think of it as your virtual parts garage. They've always got the right fitment at the right prices. Use the eBay Motors app or visit ebaymotors.com. Let's ride.
Holidays are here, and so is fashionable fitness. Gift yourself a Samsung Galaxy Z Flip 3 5G, a phone that folds in half to literally stand on its own. Pair it with the Galaxy Watch 4 for ultimate wellness and wow factor. Check health stats, flex personal records. Over 90 activities can be tracked, like biking, swimming, golfing, and more. Invest in yourself with tech made to crush goals. Holidays open up with Galaxy. Shop it all at Samsung.com. 5G connection and availability may vary. Check with carrier. Products sold separately.